Hey guys, we're just going to tune into Zoom as well and make our way to begin. All right. Hi guys, hope everyone's doing well and the week is commencing okay. We're here tuned in together for our next session on how to run a virtual Seder experience, and looking to make this one as interactive as possible. So hopefully those who can to swing into the Zoom rather than to, obviously in Facebook Live, we're always happy for all participants to join in as well. But we want to do our best to make this a conversation. The reason why we need to make this a conversation, I'm just going to mute those who are not specifically asking questions. The reason why specifically this needs to be a conversation is for a very simple reason. So I could probably Google how to run a Shabbat morning service. I could probably Google how to run a Friday night dinner. I could probably Google even how to run a Seder. But try Googling how to run a virtual Seder, and you'll find that there is a dearth of information. Of course, the reason why there's a dearth of information is because no one's ever really done one before. The idea of having a Seder, which is going to be connecting different places, in some ways is a bit antithetical to the concept of a Seder when everyone sits around one table and everyone's together. And therefore there is an element of having to break the mold in being able to run a virtual Seder. And that's why we need to talk about it. But rather than looking at it as a negative, let's consider it as a positive opportunity. And hopefully, through the conversations that we're going to have, we'll start thinking about what's going to make my virtual Seder a shared experience, which is going to enhance not only our own, but obviously all those as well who are connecting in also. So what is a virtual Seder? That's the first step. We need to ask ourselves, what does a virtual Seder look like? Here's what it doesn't look like. Sitting down and eating a dinner while someone in a different house somewhere eats a dinner and you watch each other eating dinner. That is not a virtual Seder. Now, although you may tell me that when everyone's together, a big function of the Seder experience is the meal. And I take that point. But the meal at a Seder is a facilitation of the conversations that happen around that meal. The stories might be somewhat about what was eaten, but it's much more about what was said during what's being eaten. And therefore, when you are trying to have those conversations and have the connections, food quite possibly is going to get in the way. And therefore, whereas a normal Seder might be less scripted, it might be less, it could be more organic and flow and just everyone together, and you have the experience. You have the food, and once you have the food, then everything else kind of just goes along. As long as the food's good, everyone's happy. And if the food's bad, even better conversations. So this is very different. A virtual Seder experience that we're sharing needs to remove the food element from it and replacing it, therefore, with content which makes the Seder, the building blocks of this experience present, experienced, enjoyed, and hopefully to be remembered as well. So, how is it supposed to look? Now here comes the really critical part. Everyone's going to have to run it differently. Every home will have a different focus. So for example, let's say your virtual Seder is principally about friends that are of a similar age, and you want to connect, or family which is a similar age. It's going to be a very different experience than if you're going to have a virtual Seder in which you have intergenerational parts at play. Will there be little children at some homes? Will there be elderly people who might not have the same type of capacity to spend focused time on a Zoom channel where there is going to be lots going on? Each Seder needs to have, therefore, distinct elements to it depending on the makeup, depending on who's going to be there, and depending on how many homes you're going to try to link up to. Right now, on our Zoom channel, we have 8 participants. And if we were to try with those 8 participants to have a engaging conversation, it's relatively straightforward. As long as people are semi-respectful of waiting their turn and not everyone jumping onto each other, it should work really well. If I had 30 people on there, it'd be much less of a conversation. It would be much more about a presentation rather than an engaging, interactive experience. So therefore, think very carefully how many people are going to be at your virtual Seder. My recommendation is sometimes less is more. Better to have a couple of core participants that everyone will be able to enjoy than to try to win the Bushy Award for most attendees of a virtual Seder, which I'm sure you guys are all planning on doing. Once you have worked out the numbers of how many people or how many households, then there's some tech which needs to be worked out. You need to have, ideally, either a laptop which is able to have a good view of what's going on, or alternatively, a phone which is able either to be propped up. Most people do not have the luxury of having a tripod for their phones, but if you do happen to have one, even better, that you're able to share it and to use that tripod to get a good view. But a good view is important, because if the participants at a different Seder are just watching a flower vase for the entire time, that's not very engaging, now is it? So you need to make sure ahead of time, and it's worth having a test where you are positioning your equipment around your Seder table in a place where it will have a good view. Maybe you don't need to have a Seder in which everyone is seated around as they normally would. Maybe you can have, if it's one person, relatively straightforward, but maybe if it's 2 people, they should be sitting next to each other rather than opposite each other, so therefore they're able to be tuned in. And remember, not only is it important for the person to be seen, it's also quite important to be able to see as well, because as much as most people enjoy talking to a camera, it's hard to realize that there's someone on the other end if you can't see as well. Laptops are therefore certainly much better when it comes to Zoom. You put in your Zoom, you schedule your Zoom meeting. For those who are not familiar how to use Zoom, you have between now and Wednesday at 6 p.m. or whatever time the Seder is going to begin, learn how to use Zoom, or find someone who's the Chacham in the family. It's a good time of year to have a Chacham, and for them to know how to use the technology, that they could share the meeting, and most of you will only have a 40-minute window. Our account allows for a lot more time, but if you only have 40 minutes, that should still be plenty of time to be able to have a good experience. Now, this is pretty straightforward. With Zoom technology, you can do lots of things. What you can't do is to have simultaneous sound. In other words, I see Rob, you're over here. If I and you tried to talk at the same time, it wouldn't work very well. So rather than me and you competing to talk together, it's quite useful to take turns. And the same thing should be true when it comes to your virtual Seder. The virtual Seder experience, which you are sharing, you want to have different families or different individuals to take their turns to take part. So therefore, let's say the Feldmans are having Seder with the senior Feldmans who are living in New York. I would, as an example, have created a script in which our family would first do one song. My parents would do a story. The next group would do Manishtana, and we would continue going in which each part, each family, each segment of the virtual experience has their role to prepare and their role to execute. You could have the same thing repeated more than once. There's nothing wrong with that. You could switch off at different stanzas and different stages, but you might as well maximize. You have the time together. Everyone should make a contribution. Everyone should take part. So some things, for example, if I were to begin with Kadesh Orchatz, I sing that. The next family, the next participant, or the next Zoom link will then share an insight on what it means to make Kiddush or to have Kadesh in an environment which is very foreign than the one that we are used to, and so on and so forth. So there should be a lot of forethought on who's going to do what role when it comes to the Seder. Now, the internet is full of parody songs. There's some great ones that are being produced this year. I've heard a great Bohemian Rhapsody parody. I've heard a great Lion King parody. Of course, you have some of the more oldies and the goodies, which are great as well, family favorites. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're going to contribute, just have a running order. And don't try to work it out and say everyone is now sitting here, what should we do? Make sure the tech is working. Make sure the positioning is working. Make sure everyone has their scheduled meeting, that they know when they're coming and they're all ready to roll. Make sure that you guys have each delegated what contributions you're going to make. And whether the contributions will be songs, whether they're going to be stories, whether they're going to be reflections, whether they're going to be conversation contributions, whether it's going to be how to organize the kids to make sure that they can say their Manishtana for everyone to be able to hear if that's what's happening at your Seder. Those are the things that will make the virtual Seder experience special. Not having the table laid out absolutely perfectly, not having the memories of what a Seder is normally like to want to use. It's taking the nuggets and the best stuff which happen at all of our Seders and using them in a more engaging way with those who are around. So, before we continue on, does anyone have any comments or questions from what we've shared already until now? No questions, guys. Are you guys all experts on virtual Seders already? You might think it's not rocket science, but actually, to get it right, I have to tell you, I'm going to be running one at 6 p.m. for the community for about an hour. And I'm very excited about it because it's going to be a really nice opportunity for us to extend our Seder to those beyond. You may utilize that time to be with your family. You may want to be with our extended family, with the community, or you may not have any family that you would want to be with anyway. It all really depends on each person's circumstances and what's going on as well. I'm going to go off of Zoom for 1 second so I'm able to pull up a special songbook, which is quite useful. So give me a second. Okay. So the Bushy Communal Seder has used for years different models of interactive singing and different things which go down really well in the communal Seder. So I'm going to share, for those who are on Zoom, something which would be typically used at our Seder. So you guys are able to see. We have here, welcome so-and-so to Bushy's Communal Seder Songbook and Quiz Sheet. And it says nice Chag Sameach. The Cats produced this. It's really, really great. You could see those who are there. That's myself and Rabbi Nick together. Really, really great. So we start off with a song like Cooking and Cleaning. Many of us know it. Cleaning and cooking and so many dishes. Out with the hummus, no pasta, no knishes. Fish that's gefiltered and horseradish that stings. These are a few of my Passover things. Yeah. So, we start off with a nice song. So let's say that was just going to be an example. One family or one group, they're in charge of doing the My Favorite Things part. So they open up the Seder and with the song, belting it at the top of their lungs for everyone to be able to hear and hopefully to be equally embarrassed by the occasion. The next family might want to then do another song, assuming that there's other families that are specifically involved and not just people who are tuning in but don't want to have active involvement. So, are you going to Seder tonight? Which is another parody song. This one is to Are You Going to Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel. Are you going to Seder tonight? Parsley, egg, charosas, and grain remind us of the Jews' bitter plight. Moses freed them from Pharaoh's chain. Right? Once again, really nice. This is not the traditional Kaddish or Chatz, don't get me wrong, but sometimes having an opportunity to share something a little bit different would be great. And then you could divide up the songs into different households, or alternatively, songs versus stories. Everything we've already listed, this is just an illustration of how it might work depending on where you are. Another song, Brick Builders songs. There's so many songs. We're gonna jump down, turn around, pick a bale of straw. Jump down, turn around, pick a bunch of clay. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of straw. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of hay. Hey, Lordy, pick a bale of straw. Hey, Lordy, pick a bale of day. Hey, Lordy, pick a bale of straw. Hey, Lordy, pick a bale of day. Now, whether you want to choreograph that or not as you're going about it, That's up to you, but certainly you can keep on going faster and faster and faster, and it's a lot, really is a lot of good fun when you get your creative juices flowing and your enthusiasm pumping as well. All these are songs that you will know of. Rabbi Eliezer, a story is told, right? With the four rabbis, a commonly known song. Said the father to his children said the father to his children, say that you will dine, you will eat your fill of matzah, drink 4 cups of wine. Da 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 da. What we're happy to do is to share this for all your homes, for anyone who wants to contribute it and to use it. Feel free. There are also Seder games, which is a really nice thing that you can do as well, virtually around. You could go online, Seder games. Some of them cost money, some of them are free, and you could play them virtually as well. Once again, it's not about playing a game together. It's about experiencing a Seder experience together. And if the songs and if the games are able to facilitate connection, interactivity, you're doing really well. If it seems to be getting in the way of it, then the engagement is probably a little bit off. Any questions as we continue going? So another song, "Go Down Moses," a very famous song, which evokes a lot of memories regarding Egypt, regarding our own cultural experiences as well. You have dingbats, which can be used. You have quizzes, which you're able to find. Feel free to spend the time between now and then either going through some of your old material which you've used and discussing with the various people what you want to each share, or perhaps everyone commit to find something new to make it a little bit different, to make it a little bit more exciting or a little bit more fresh, as it is a new experience. Regarding what can be shared in terms of the actual text itself. Now, for some people, the text gets in the way of their Seder. For us, we like to think that the Haggadah is the Seder experience. And therefore, certainly, there should be the Halach Ma'anya, which is recited. Manishtana should be shared. Avadim Hayinu should be sung. Dayenu should be there. All the songs for Hallel that you're going to sing together. Share the story of Mitzrayim, the story of going down, going up, the 10 plagues. All of these things should be present and shared in Hebrew, in Aramaic, in English, in Chinese, if that's your thing. But don't do any of the blessings, because the blessings need to be specifically done around when you're actually having the Seder proper, which will be either on your own or with those who are in your household as nightfall comes, and that's when you have your first cup of wine, etc., etc. What's the outcome that we're looking to try to achieve from the virtual Seder? So, as I said in the beginning, it's about creating some very special memories this year. It's about feeling relationship and closeness. In some ways, the very same way that we on Be Online, in the Bushy Online community, have been enjoying since we have not been able to have a physical connection, and perhaps even more so than we used to have before as well. It's also an opportunity as well for those who are in a position to make sure that we have that we keep the tradition going of the value of Seder each year. And I cannot stress this enough. If you are thinking about whether you're going to do a virtual Seder or not, just remember, there are those around who might be considering giving a skip this year to the Seder experience. They're isolated, they're on their own, they don't have the grandchildren there, they don't have a cheshek, or alternatively, the grandparents aren't there to nudge them about doing the Seder, so it is what it is. Really, for those who are tuning in to have that virtual Seder experience, the same way that you would feel responsibility to hold a Seder for those who otherwise might not have one. This is part of the mitzvah of the Higad to Levincha, that you should pass on the traditions from generation to generation. And equally so, I would say, for those listening in as well, and for those who will be viewing this later, there's also an obligation for you, because all of us need to have a Seder. And each of us need to feel that feeling of B'chol Dor Vador. In every generation, we have to see ourselves as if we've gone out of Egypt. And it could be that the virtual Seder element of it puts us in that mindset that this is Pesach. Not just because you're eating crispy matzah. Not just because you have done some spring cleaning or have gotten some exotic cheese that you never would eat the rest of the year. It is about it's about living an experience. And the way that you live an experience is by doing the things. By having an experiential journey. And this year we're having it through the virtual stream as well. Take it seriously. But have fun. Treat it as a responsibility. But feel fortunate that you can do one. If this COVID-19 pandemic would have happened 10 years ago, we would not be having this conversation. Technology is our friend. And it's a gift. So for us to be able to utilize it to engage with and therefore go into Pesach knowing that all the people that you were able to touch have been touched. All the people that you've been able to reach have been reached. Whether they live in Spain, whether they live in the States, whether they live across the road, it doesn't matter. Aspirationally, we should be more connected as we go into Pesach this year than ever before. But it's a very different Seder. It can't be winged. It can't just be based, as I said, around the food that we're going to have. It can't just be based around the banter and the camaraderie. It needs to be structured. Structured with different roles and careful planning about where everything is configured, where everything is where we're going to sit in order that we have the most interactive engagement. Before I go live with you guys, I spend a lot of time working where's my cameras, where am I sitting, which part of the house am I going to allow you to see this time versus another time. Choreographing a Zoom or Facebook session takes thought, but when done correctly, it works. For those of you who can see, Lawrence Brass is on. Lawrence has clearly given time to consider that it's the fatherly thing to have a cup of tea whilst I'm Zooming. So I have that type of, avuncular, experience which he's sharing with me. I appreciate that. Obviously, that's had time and attention which has gone into it. Mike, more of a schluch, but that's fine. He's entitled to as well. I am what I am, right? It's just about thinking. It's just about considering. Okay, we have time to open up for questions. I think I'm happy to clarify other points about structure and about preparation, but hopefully you have a bit of an idea of the direction that things are supposed to run, and therefore, if anyone wants to take themselves off mute or ask any question on Facebook Live for me to read out, I'm more than happy to do so. The floor is yours. Any or comments you could put on the chat on Zoom if you don't want to speak, whatever you like. Okay, the floor is for anyone who might want to share a contribution. I'll start with a simple question. Anyone here actually going to do a virtual Seder? Okay, you are going to do it. Mike, who are you going to do it with? Let's play this out. Who's going to be there? Obviously, leave out all details that might incriminate anyone. Let's. So, who's going to be on the other end of that camera? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Mike, for those of you who are on Facebook and not able to hear, so we have we have 3 homes that will be linked in. 2 of the homes will have will be I'm going to call you middle aged for this conversation. Okay, middle aged with children in their 20s, let's say, or late 20s, as well as another house which will have people who are just with a young family as well. Is that right? Okay, so you have different interplays which are going on. So what I would recommend for Mike Seder, what he's doing is not just to make it entirely the responsibility of the young family to put on a show for everyone watching. That's not fair, and it might not even be realistic depending on the age of the grandchild who's going to be tuning in. Rather, they should be given a specific role that they're going to have during the Seder. Maybe the role will be to read out a poem. Maybe that will be in order to act out a play, which they're able to do together while everyone is watching, having a narrator say what it's going to be about to make sure that it's not to make sure that's understood which is going on. Right. Another family might consider an opportunity to say, we're going to be the Afikomen family this year. We're going to be the ones that will offer a prize, not for finding the Afikomen this year, because obviously it's quite difficult to find Afikomen unless you're going to be leading the camera around, but rather the Afikomen will be awarded to those who are able to give the most compelling thought, or the most interesting story, or the best song will be awarded the Afikomen. Mike. Yeah. Absolutely. So what Mike is saying, you could virtually hide Afikomen. It could be done based upon quizzes that you need to solve. It could be based upon doing finding the Afikomen based upon the hangman. I don't know. It doesn't make a difference what you're going to do, but you don't have to be bound by looking underneath the couch this year or inside the Hoover cleaner like my kids did last year in order to have the Afikomen. That would be an example where using different parts and different elements will enhance rather than put too much of an onus of responsibility on any one person at any one time. Okay, Lawrence, are you looking to have one this year? Let me take you off mute. Okay, go for it. Sorry. Yeah, now I am, yeah. 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 Okay, so when I said Lawrence, he didn't come in because of the fact that it's so Lawrence asked, what about if you stand up for different parts of the Seder, how's that going to work? So what I said is that that this year, the Seder, for it to be based upon the eating and drinking together, is probably going in the wrong direction, both halachically but also engagingly, because the wine, the eating, that's all really good when you're around one table and you automatically have the atmosphere which goes along with it. It's not as much fun to spill your wine when you're the only one at the table. Okay, it just isn't, and therefore don't go for the wine. Go for the symbolism of what wine can represent, which you're able to talk about, or you could talk about the Shehecheyanu prayer and think, what does it mean to thank Hashem for life in 2020 in Bushi? And that should be what the Kiddush is about when you're together. Not the rituals. The rituals can be done on your own. It's more about the relationship and the connection which you're using Zoom for in ways that you wouldn't normally be able to do. But you're absolutely right. Standing up, sitting down, it's not the right time for it unless you have a really well-paid sidekick who can help move around the camera, which isn't fair. I would recommend, as I said before, rather than sitting opposite someone at the table, sit side by side. Make sure that the camera sees both of you, rather than having to rotate, which isn't going to create a good experience. So who's going to be at, the second question. Yeah. 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 Feedback. Yeah. Okay, this is quite important. Yeah. Okay, so Lawrence is asking a question around how to deal with using more than one device in the same room as part of the virtual Seder. The simple answer is you can't. You cannot. You need to share a device together, and there's no reason why you can't share a laptop together, especially if it's going to be positioned slightly further away. And the same thing to do with if you're using a phone or using an iPad. It's absolutely fine. The only issue with using you see, you guys are doing great. Look at that, unbelievable, right together. Okay, so the only issue is with using a iPhone or even a iPad versus a laptop, is it limits the amount of people you can see at the same time. On a screen, you could probably, not that you're going to have that many devices that you're going to be connecting with, but in theory, you could probably get up to about 20 on one screen. Whereas when it comes to an iPhone, there's a maximum of maybe 4, maybe 5 that you're able to see. So if you have a laptop, probably better to use it than to use the other devices. But sit together, sit next to one another, sit together. It's good. It's good for your relationship anyway. It'll be good. Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to share their scenario of what type of Seder they're going to look to do virtually, and therefore we're able to kind of field what I would at least make a recommendation should be there. It's all yours. Anyone else want to share? Okay. We're all shy, which is absolutely fine. Okay. Yes. Okay, so what Mike is saying, for those of you who are on Facebook Live, is there might be a way of using 2 devices in one room without having feedback going through, which is if that works, then great. But, there is no particular need to have more than one device at a table. The other advantage of using a laptop, by the way, over using other devices, is much easier to share material through it. So I shared before. I'll do it again just to demonstrate it. I have shared my songbook, and if you're on the laptop, it's much easier for you to be able to share. First God sent, plague number 1, turned the Nile into blood. All the people in Egypt were feeling pretty low. They told Pharaoh, let them go. So this would be a good example where you can't sing with multiple people, but what you can do is switch off. So we're going to practice this. If I can ask for Lawrence, you're going to be my guinea pig on this one. So I'm going to sing, and your job is going to be to sing the let them go part, okay? That's all you need to do. So you have to wait your turn, and then when it's let them go, you have to get ready to get in. Ready? First God sent, plague number 1, turned the Nile into blood. All the people in Egypt were feeling pretty low. They told Pharaoh. You see, very good. So there's no reason why you two different homes can't share a song, as long as it's being thought out in order to work out the choreography of being able to make it go. And there's no reason as well why you can't share the manashtana between two different homes equally, but you can't do it at the same time. You can't sing together. You could sing as part of something together. That's where the technology works, and that's where it's limited. You can't speak. You can't do it in unison. You could, but you won't hear each other. Right? It will all be muffled and blurred, rather than being if you try to sing it all together. It won't have the same. You'll lose stuff if you try to do it that way. Okay. Anyone else want to offer something? I have something on my chat over here. We have yes, the songbook will be sent around for everyone to be able to use. You could also, another thing which you're able to do, I wouldn't really recommend it, but you are able through Zoom in some ways to share videos together. It gets in the way of the Seder. I like to use songbooks. I like to use props. I don't like to use as much actual videos, because you can watch videos beforehand, afterwards, unless the video is of someone who's no longer with you, someone who's passed on that you want to share. Maybe I see the value. A nice idea, by the way, for a Seder. This might take a little bit of work, but is really cool. If you could spend a bit of time making a collage or a slideshow of family members from the past. That's a really nice thing to be able to do, to bring that into the Seder experience. Something you might not think to do, but it's a great time to talk about these things. Okay, Susan, you have a question for me. Okay, so Susan just wants to know the halachic, I assume, halachic matters of what can or can't be done at the Seder. Very simple. So this is going to be before Yom Tov comes in. So the first thing is, by 7:30 you have to have lit candles, all technology needs to be off, and you're having your own Seder experience. What we're talking about here is everything happening beforehand. So that's just the first thing. The second thing is, you're not fulfilling any mitzvahs of Seder when you're doing this. You're fulfilling, getting into the mood, you're preparing for Seder, but you're not actually fulfilling the mitzvahs, and therefore, just because you do something at the Seder doesn't mean it doesn't need to be replayed, possibly in a more abbreviated fashion, afterwards. What you want to do is all the wordy things and all the singy things are happening. Halach ma'anya, the story, Madashtana, Avadim Hayinu, the songs, Tayenu, the Hallel, which is sung, the Magid story, going down into Egypt, coming out of Egypt, the praise of Hashem for taking us out with the concluding Hallel. You can have all of the Chag Gadyas, the Adir Who's, Who Knows One, all of those things are all great stuff to contribute. No eating, no blessings, and no absolution. That's not a word. Being absolved from needing to actually have a seder with the matzah open in front of you and having and eating the halachic amounts and doing it after nightfall and having the 4 cups of wine. All that you save to when you put away your devices and then sit down and say now we're ready to have the halachic seder part. Jeff? Yeah. Not replay it, but you need to go through it. So which means that what you do need to do, so Jeff's asking, so you have to repeat everything again. So you're not repeating it because a lot of what you've done has been more about the sharing together than about the reciting. So when you haven't lifted up the matzah for, you haven't broken the yachats. You haven't dipped for the 10 plagues. The actual steps of the Seder, the 15 steps, you want to run through. That you want to run through when you're going through with everything that you need to eat, everything you need to make a bracha on, and that all should be after nightfall. 7:30, yeah. 7:30 candles need to be lit by. Then you daven Ma'ariv, and then you start your Seder 8:20, whatever time. It's nightfall with your first cup of wine. It doesn't. And what I would say last night was about focusing on the actual Seder, how to run the Seder, how to have that Seder, especially when you're more on your own. So I'm not really going to discuss it now, but it's a really good opportunity to have a more introspective Seder than you would, where it isn't about the banter and the jokes and often having to navigate complexities, which are the nature of a Seder. This is different, and therefore it's a great opportunity. Find a good Haggadah. Find a good Haggadah whether it's on your shelf they haven't looked at. Blow off the dust and hopefully no crumbs, and try it that way. Or go on Aish or other websites and download material that you want to think about. There's so much out there of how to have a meaningful Seder, but it'll just be slightly different or very different than one you've experienced. In some ways, you might enjoy it more. That's a good question. Jeff is asking when this year must the Afikoman be Eden? It's around 1 a.m. If you're still up, let me know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Susan's asking, can you eat anything off the Seder plate? It shouldn't be about eating. It should be about pointing and discussing. The eating happens at the Seder plate, from the Seder plate, when you dip and when you do all that stuff, reclining and everything like that. That happens when you're having your own personal Seder. You could do some nibbling, but it's not a meaningful Zoom experience. The eating and the tasting. You know, if I'm sitting opposite Jeff and I'm thinking and I have some maror and I say, oh, this is sharp this year, and what's he going to comment and say, actually mine's not so sharp this year? Well, that's obvious, we're having different marors this year, so you know it doesn't have the same type of feel that you would get if you're sitting around the same. There's a reason why the matzah is a topic of conversation. It's the matzah that you're having at the table, this bread of affliction. Over here we're doing it, it's different. It's about connection and linking, and not about the tasting. It's virtual. It's a virtual platform. It's a whole new world, but I'm getting my teeth around it. I'm trying to anyway. Sorry? Is anyone else asking any questions? Okay, so anyone else want to make any other contributions or any questions regarding the virtual aspects of the Seder, Susan or anyone else, before we draw to a close? Sorry, Lawrence, I'm unmuting you again. Sorry again. Okay. Well, we'll discuss that offline if that's okay. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we have a unusual experience this year. Please God, may it never be repeated. But you may find that I'll use myself as an example. I might find I'm going to get in quite a bit of trouble. I have family in Israel. I have family in other parts of London. I have family in America. And this year we're going to have this virtual opportunities that we never had before. And I might find that every year I'm going to have to do this because they're going to say, hey, you can't use the excuse anymore, oh, you're the rabbi in Bushy, you can't go and spend Seder with us. I might find that this is, that we're unlocking a door here, which might be a really, really good door, where we can find ways of connecting with those who are not right next to us, but are very much close to us. And we shouldn't look at this as a defeatist Seder. This is a really exciting opportunity under very trying circumstances. And it's our job to rise to the occasion. And I think we will. And I think we'll look back and be proud of the Seders that we've had. And please God. And please God, next year in Jerusalem, with a great story. But they're always great stories. The stories continue. And I would like to think that our children and grandchildren will be able to chalk this one up and say, this was different, this was special. So that is our final contribution on preparation. Tomorrow night is going to be Rabbi Nick Early doing a run-through on how to... I'm going to do a run-through on how to do the Bedikat Chametz, searching for Chametz properly. And then Shacharit on Wednesday morning, 7:45 a.m., followed by the Siyum for firstborns, 8:30 a.m. on Zoom and on Facebook Live, followed by the sale of Chametz, which will be taking place live as we do, followed by the Erev Tafshilin, which needs to be done this year in the run-up to Pesach, followed by the burning of the Chametz, followed by the 6 p.m. first ever Bushy communal virtual experience, and followed by, please God, a beautiful Pesach for us all to enjoy. Until then, be gesund, keep well, and hoping to keep in touch anything we need, and have a wonderful evening. All right, good night, guys. Rabbi, just reading your message. Yes, absolutely, it is amazing to be able to have that link and that connection. This is hopefully opening up doors for us, and which is really, really great. And looking forward to continuing the conversation as well. Facebook, I wish you a good night.